They say betrayal hurts more when it comes from blood, but nobody tells you what it feels like when that blood is your only child. I still remember the day the bank called me. The woman on the phone had that polite, rehearsed voice, the kind that means bad news wrapped in manners. She said my savings account had been accessed like it was a door I'd left unlocked. $80,000. Gone. I laughed at first, not because it was funny, but because that's what you do when your world cracks open and you're too old to scream. I told her it must be a mistake. I told her my son, my Darius, would never do something like that. But he did. He didn't just take the money. He took the part of me that still believed I'd raised a good man. And while he was in Rome smiling in his fancy clothes posting pictures that said, "I earned this," I was here in the same kitchen where I used to pack his lunch holding printouts of those pictures, my coffee going cold, wondering when exactly I stopped being mama and became someone to steal from. They say every story has a breaking point. Mine came quietly between the sound of the fridge humming and the clock ticking on the wall, the same clock my husband bought the year Darius was born. That's when I realised something. If the world was going to take everything from me, my husband, my health, my trust, then I wasn't going to let it take my dignity too. So I put on my Sunday coat, found my old lawyer's number, and decided to remind my son that some mothers don't just pray, they fight. This video is brought to you by Heartbreak. It's best enjoyed during lunch dinner before bedtime, or when you just need something playing in the background while you work study drive or do the dishes. Have a wonderful day. People think old folks got nothing but time. They say it like it's some kind of blessing. Truth is, time just feels longer when you ain't got anyone to share breakfast with. Every morning I get up around 6. My knees pop like microwave popcorn when I stand, and I thank the Lord that they still work. I put on my old pink robe, faded from 100 washes, and shuffle into the kitchen. I always start the coffee pot before I feed the cat. His name's Mr. Blues, and he's been around since my husband, God rest his soul, passed away 10 years ago. Sometimes I talk to the cat more than I talk to people. I live in the same little house on Maple Avenue that me and my husband bought in 1978. Back then, South Central was different. Kids played on the street, folks said, "Good morning," without checking who you voted for. These days there's barbed wire on fences and locks on everything, even your heart if you're smart. But this house still smells like lemon polish and Sunday dinner. I keep it that way. After breakfast, I sit by the window with my cup and listen to the old gospel station. They play the same songs every morning Mahalia Jackson, Sam Cooke, when he still sang for the Lord. My favourite is Precious Lord. Sometimes I hum along soft enough so only Mr. Blues can hear. My son Darius calls every other Sunday. He works at a bank, got himself a fancy job with a title I can't even remember. Assistant, something, to some director, something. I don't ask questions. I just like hearing his voice. He moved out years ago, said South Central was too small for him and Keisha. That girl's got a mouth on her, but she keeps my boy looking sharp so I can't complain too much. They live up in Pasadena now. Condos, elevators, parking garages, all that. Whole other world. The last time he visited was on my birthday 6 months ago. He brought me one of those store-bought cakes that taste like refrigerator and a bottle of lotion from Macy's. "You deserve nice things, Ma," he said. Sweet boy. But he left before dinner, said they had reservations at some sushi place. I still got the cake in the freezer. Couldn't bring myself to throw it away. Every Friday I go down to the credit union to check on my savings. Old habits. My husband James used to say, "Don't trust nobody with your money, not even the bank." So I always liked seeing that balance printed on paper, steady safe. $80,000, a number that made me feel secure, like I could grow old without needing nobody's help. The girls at the bank know me by name. "Morning, Mrs. Jackson," they say. "You still walking all the way from Maple?" I tell them walking keeps me alive. Truth is, I just don't like asking for rides. I've had enough of waiting for people to show up. Sometimes after the bank, I stop by Denise's place. She lives 2 doors down. She's been retired from accounting for a few years, still sharp as a tack. We sit on her porch with a pitcher of sweet tea and gossip about the neighbourhood, about who painted their house the wrong colour or whose grandbaby's been skipping school. Denise says, "Loretta, you always got that same calm look on your face. Don't nothing ever shake you, I tell her. When you've buried a husband and raised a son alone, ain't much left that can. That's my routine. Church on Sundays, groceries on Tuesdays, bills on Thursdays, coffee every morning. I keep a notebook by the fridge with every due date and every receipt. It's silly maybe, but writing things down helps me sleep. You live long enough, you realise memories like milk, it spoils fast. I don't watch much TV. Too many loud voices, too much news that don't concern me. I prefer the quiet. The sound of the clock ticking in the living room, the hum of the fridge, the rocking chair creaking on the porch. Sometimes I imagine James sitting there watching the street shaking his head like he used to. Girl, you still worrying too much, he'd say, and I'd tell him somebody's got to. Every now and then I get letters from Darius, well, more like bills he asked me to hold on to, or insurance papers he said he'd handle later. I keep them in a little tin box under the bed, my important things box. Old photos, his first drawing, our marriage certificate. All the things nobody else would see the value in. That night, after my usual cup of chamomile tea, I went through the box again. I looked at Darius's picture from high school, him in that wrinkled tux, pretending he didn't want me to take a photo. My baby boy. The one who promised he'd take care of me when I got old. I smiled and whispered, "You did good, baby. You really did." It was peaceful that night. Quiet, like it used to be. I had no idea that in less than a week, peace would turn into suspicion, and suspicion into heartbreak. But for that one night I was still just Loretta Jackson, the woman with her little house, her old cat, her coffee pot, and her routine. The morning it happened was just like any other. Sunlight sneaking through the blinds, Mr. Blues scratching at his bowl, the smell of instant coffee filling the kitchen. I remember humming to the radio something by Aretha, I think, and feeling grateful I still had a voice that could carry a tune. I didn't plan on going to the bank that day, but Denise called to ask if I wanted to ride with her. She had to deposit a cheque and didn't want to go alone. I figured, why not? My arthritis was acting up, and the thought of walking those 6 blocks in the heat wasn't appealing. So I grabbed my purse, my sun hat, and that little blue folder where I keep my bank papers, just in case. The credit union lobby smelled like hand sanitizer and printer ink. They'd changed the carpet since my last visit, ugly grey instead of green. The same teller though. Her name's Mariah. Sweet girl always calls me Miss Loretta like I'm her school teacher or something. She smiled when she saw me. "Well, hey there, Miss Loretta. How you doing today?" "Still breathing," I told her. "That's more than some folks can say." She laughed and took my passbook. I watched her type my account number into that little screen, same as always. But this time, her smile disappeared. Just gone, like someone turned off the light behind her eyes. Mrs. Jackson," she said quietly, "would you mind stepping over to my manager's desk for a moment? Now I don't scare easy." But something about her voice made my stomach twist. I clutched my purse a little tighter and followed her over to a man in a suit too small for his body. He had that fake polite voice people use when they're about to tell you something bad. "Mrs. Jackson," he said, "it seems there's been a recent withdrawal from your savings account." I frowned. That can't be right. I haven't touched that money in months. He clicked a few buttons, printed out a paper and slid it toward me. The number at the bottom made my mouth go dry. Balance 00, $80,000. Gone. Just like that. At first I thought it was a mistake. Maybe a computer glitch. Maybe someone typed the wrong number. But the manager pointed to the printout. These were authorised transactions, he said. Wire transfers, actually. I leaned in, squinting at the small black text. The name on the receiving account jumped out like a snake in the grass. Darius Jackson. My heart stopped. My boy's name. Right there, printed in ink, like it was nothing. Like it belonged there. I shook my head. "No, that can't be right. My son, he wouldn't." The manager cleared his throat. "The signature on file matches yours, ma'am." He slid another paper forward. I stared at the signature. It looked like mine, same loops, same slant. But the more I looked, the more it felt wrong. Off somehow, like someone had studied me, but didn't understand me. I felt my cheeks burn. I didn't sign that, I whispered. "Ma'am, if you believe this is fraudulent activity, we can file a report and freeze." I didn't hear the rest. My ears were ringing like the world had gone underwater. Denise must have seen my face from across the lobby because she hurried over. "Loretta, what's wrong?" I handed her the paper with a shaking hand. She read it, then looked at me with wide eyes. Oh, honey. I remember sitting down on one of those hard plastic chairs by the wall, clutching my purse like it could anchor me. $80,000. 40 years of saving, gone in a breath. My James worked 2 jobs. I cleaned houses. We skipped vacations, birthdays. Everything just to make sure we'd have something for old age. For safety. For him. For me. For Darius. On the ride home, Denise didn't talk much. She kept glancing at me like I might break if she said the wrong word. I didn't break, though. I just went quiet. When I got home, I made coffee I couldn't drink and sat at the kitchen table staring at that printout. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I told myself there had to be some explanation. Maybe Darius borrowed it for something important. Maybe he planned to put it back. I called his phone, straight to voicemail. Tried again. Nothing. By evening, I finally got him on the line. He sounded tired, annoyed even. Hey Ma, what's up? I swallowed hard. Baby, I went to the bank today. They said my savings account is empty. Said the money went to your account. Is that true? Silence, long enough for my stomach to drop. Then he said, oh, yeah, about that. Don't worry, Ma, I moved it. It's safer in my portfolio. I'll handle the taxes, the interest, all that. You know you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. He said it so casual like we were talking about groceries. Darius whispered you took all of it. Ma, calm down. It's still our money. Our money. That's what he said. Like my husband never worked himself to death for that nest egg. Like I didn't scrub floors till my back gave out. Our money. I didn't say you could touch that account, I told him. He sighed. You always overthink things, Ma. Look, I gotta go. Keisha's waiting. We're catching a flight tomorrow. A flight to where? But the line was already dead. I sat there, phone in hand, heart thudding like a drum. Outside the streetlights flickered on one by one. The cat jumped onto my lap, purring like nothing in the world had changed. But everything had. That night I didn't sleep. I kept replaying his voice in my head, calm, dismissive, distant. That was the first time I realised something about my son had changed, and maybe I'd been too blind or too proud to see it. I pulled out the tin box from under my bed, opened it, touched the old photos, the birth certificate, the report cards that used to make me so proud. My fingers brushed against the corner of our marriage certificate, James's signature bold and steady next to mine. I traced it with my thumb, remembering how sure he always was about everything. I whispered, James, what would you do if you were here? No answer, of course, just the hum of the refrigerator in the next room, steady and cold. By dawn, I made up my mind. I wasn't going to cry. Not yet. If Darius thought he could lie to me, he'd forgotten who raised him. I might be old, but I ain't dumb. It had been 3 days since I called Darius. 3 long, heavy days of silence. I didn't tell anyone what happened, not even Denise. I just went on like nothing was wrong. I cleaned the kitchen twice, rearranged the pantry, washed clothes that were already clean. It's funny what you'll do when you're trying not to think. Every time the phone rang, my heart jumped, but it was never him. Telemarketers. Church folks asking for donations. Even the pharmacy reminding me about my blood pressure meds. But not my son. By the 4th day, I started to wonder if I was the crazy one. Maybe he did move the money for a reason. Maybe this was just how business people did things. Now fast, digital, complicated. Maybe I was too old to understand. Then Denise knocked on my door. She had that look the one people get when they know something you don't. She was holding her phone, the screen glowing bright in the morning light. Loretta, she said carefully, you on Instagram? I laughed. Honey, I can barely handle Facebook. Why? She handed me her phone. I think you need to see this. It was a picture of Darius. My Darius. Standing in front of the Colosseum in Rome, wearing sunglasses and a designer shirt I'd never seen before. Beside him was Keisha, smiling wide, posing with one hand on her hip, and her mama, that woman named Valerie, holding a cocktail like she owned the world. The caption said I earned this. Hashtags underneath, luxury life. Blessed. Grind pays off. Rome baby. My hand went cold. It wasn't the picture that hurt, it was the look on his face. That proud, careless grin. Like he'd climbed the whole world on his own. Like there wasn't a mother sitting in South Central drinking instant coffee and trusting him with every penny she had. Denise kept talking, saying something about those influencer types and showing off online, but I wasn't listening. I couldn't stop staring at that caption. I earned this. He didn't earn it. We did. Me and James, all those years working, saving, sacrificing. That money was supposed to be for safety, for peace, not for plane tickets and champagne. I gave Denise back her phone and said, "Thank you, honey. That's all I needed to see." She looked at me worried. "You going to be okay?" "I've been okay for 68 years, I said. "I'll figure out another day." After she left, I sat at the kitchen table. The afternoon sun came through the blinds, cutting the room into stripes of gold and shadow. I stared at the wall clock, listened to it tick, tick, tick. Every sound felt louder than it should. I opened my notebook, the one where I keep bills and dates, and wrote $80,000, stolen. Then under it, Darius, Rome. I stared at those words until they blurred. That night, I pulled out an old photo album. The first page had Darius as a baby, chubby cheeks, wide eyes, drooling all over my shoulder. I remembered singing to him, whispering that he was my miracle. We couldn't have more kids after him, so he became everything. My world, my reason. Flipping through the pages, I watched him grow first day of school, church, recitals, graduation. Always smiling, always mine. Somewhere along the way, I must have blinked because that little boy turned into a man I barely recognised. I thought about that caption again. I earned this. Maybe he really believed that. Maybe he thought love meant taking what you could because no one ever gives you enough. Maybe the world taught him that. Or maybe I did by giving too much, too easy, too often. I made myself a cup of coffee even though it was late. I didn't want to sleep. Sleeping meant dreaming, and dreaming meant remembering the way things used to be. The TV flickered in the background, some news anchor talking about crime and politics, but I didn't hear a word. My mind was already working in silence, clicking like an old safe trying to unlock. By morning, I decided I wasn't going to ask Darius again. I was going to find out. I dug through the file cabinet, found every document I ever signed, bank forms, property deeds, insurance papers. I compared signatures. Mine had a little loop at the bottom of the L. The one at the bank didn't. It was sharp rushed, like someone copying from memory. That was when my fear turned into something else. Something steadier. Anger, maybe. Or pride. The part of me that still had fight left. Later that week, I went to see Mr. Clarence. He used to be my husband's friend, retired lawyer, still keeps an office behind the barber shop on 84th Street. When I walked in, he was sitting behind a desk piled high with newspapers and coffee mugs. "Well, look who's still kicking," he said, smiling. "Miss Loretta Jackson. What brings you by?" "Trouble," I said. "The kind that wears your last name." He listened while I told the whole story. Didn't interrupt once. When I was done, he leaned back and let out a low whistle. "Elder financial abuse," he muttered. "Happens more than folks think." "I don't want to send him to jail," I said quietly. "He's still my son." He nodded. "But you want justice." "I want my name back," I said. "My peace." He told me to bring every bank statement, every piece of mail, every form I could find. "We'll start with the paper trail," he said. Paper don't lie even when people do. When I got home, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose. Maybe this was the Lord's way of telling me not to sit quiet anymore. That evening, I looked out my window. The neighbourhood kids were riding bikes down the street, laughing. Someone was grilling smoke curling into the pink sky. For a moment, I could almost breathe easy again. Then my eyes landed on the photo still open on Denise's phone, in my mind Darius smiling in Rome. The sun behind him, no guilt in his eyes. Just joy, freedom. And I whispered, "Enjoy it while it lasts, baby. Mama's coming." I've always believed that silence can do what shouting never could. When you're a woman my age, people already expect you to be quiet, so when you are, they don't notice what you're doing. That's how I began my quiet little investigation. After the bank meeting, I came home and sat in my recliner for a long while, letting the afternoon light fall across the floorboards. The clock ticked like a metronome, steady and cruel. Every sound in the house felt louder than usual, the hum of the fridge, the groan of the pipes, the faint echo of the city buses 2 streets away. I stared at the photo of Darius on my mantel graduation day, his cap-crooked smile wide. I tried to remember that boy, the one who once called me the best mama in the world. That night I didn't cry, I just made a plan. The next morning I walked over to Denise's house. She lived 2 doors down, a retired accountant who still wore her hair in tight silver curls and always smelled like baby powder. She opened the door before I could even knock twice. "Loretta Jackson, if you show up before 8 a.m, something's wrong," she said. I just handed her the envelope. "You could say that." She pulled out the bank statements and started reading right there in her doorway glasses halfway down her nose. The first thing she said was, "Lord, this ain't right. Someone's been moving your money like they were running a shell game." I nodded. "Darius." She looked up sharply, then softened. "You sure?" "I'm sure." My voice came out flat. "His name's on the wire transfer. The account it went to, that's his checking account. And the signature on the release form, that's mine. Only it ain't." Denise pursed her lips and stepped aside. "Come in, honey. We'll make some coffee. You're gonna need it." By noon, she'd printed every transaction, sorted them by date, and even colour-coded the suspicious ones. "You got withdrawals from the savings on a Friday, then cash deposits into his account on Monday. Patterns too neat." I could only stare. My head buzzed like static. "You need a lawyer," she said. "Somebody who knows this game." I thought about Clarence. Clarence and I went to the same church as kids. He used to sneak me lemon drops during Sunday service. Years later, he became a lawyer, the kind who always wore clean suits and carried 2 pens in his jacket pocket, one for work and one for the Lord's notes, he said. We hadn't talked much since my husband's funeral, but when I called, he picked up on the first ring. "Loretta, it's been a while. What's wrong?" His voice was still the same low calm, with that rhythm that made people believe every word. "I think I've been robbed," I said. "By my own son." There was a pause. "I'm listening." Clarence came over that evening, briefcase in hand, eyes sharp as ever. He spread the papers across my kitchen table like puzzle pieces. "These signatures don't match, not even close," he said. "And this joint account, when was this opened?" "Never," I said. He sighed. Then someone forged the documents. "Loretta, this isn't just theft. This is fraud, possibly elder financial abuse." The words hit like bricks. Elder financial abuse. I didn't want to think of myself as someone's victim, especially not my child's. "What do we do?" I asked quietly. He leaned back. "We build a case. Quietly. You don't confront him yet. We'll get certified copies from the bank file, a fraud report with the state's Elder Financial Protection Unit, and freeze whatever's left." Denise crossed her arms. "And she'll need evidence of his intent messages posts, maybe even something from that Instagram of his." I frowned. "You think I got an Instagram account?" Denise smirked. "Honey, that's what I'm for." Over the next week, Denise became my tech detective. She scrolled through Darius's profile eyes, narrowing like a cat spotting a bird. "Here, look at this. He posted a video in Rome. Caption says, 'When life finally pays off.'" She tilted the screen toward me. There he was standing in front of the Colosseum, wearing sunglasses and holding Keisha's hand. Valerie was behind them, smiling like she'd won the lottery. I could hear the laughter in the background, the champagne glasses clinking. My stomach turned. "He's spending my money on that trip." Denise clicked her tongue. "Oh, baby, he's bragging about it too." Clarence didn't say much. He just took a note. "Keep these screenshots," he said. "They'll matter later." For days, my house became a war room. Denise's folders stacked on the counter. Clarence's papers spread across the table. Every evening I'd sit with a cup of chamomile tea and go through the evidence. My hands trembled sometimes, but I refused to stop. And through it all, I didn't tell Darius a word. He called once around midnight just to say hi. I stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. When he texted, "Miss you, Mama," I put the phone face down on the table. My heart hurt, but my mind said, "Don't answer." Clarence came by a few days later with a folder stamped "Confidential." "We've got the proof," he said. "Forgery confirmed. The bank's internal audit backs you up." Darius transferred the funds himself after submitting a falsified authorization. I nodded, but the words didn't bring comfort. Just a kind of hollow justice. "What happens now?" I asked. "We report it. But first, I'll draft a formal notice to the Department of Justice's Elder Division. They can freeze his assets, including any international accounts he's opened." Denise leaned in. "You can stop him before he drains anything else." I looked out the window, where the sunlight hit my garden, the same one Darius helped me plant when he was 10. Tulips still blooming. He's already drained what mattered, I said. That night I took out an old photo album, the one with cracked leather and my handwriting in gold ink. Darius. Growing up. I turned the pages, slowly tracing his baby pictures with my finger. I thought about every sacrifice, every night shift, every missed holiday, every time I told myself it would all be worth it. And I realised maybe the investigation wasn't about getting the money back. Maybe it was about getting me back the woman who refused to be taken advantage of even by her own blood. When I closed the album, the silence in the house didn't scare me anymore. It felt like company. I didn't tell anyone when Clarence filed the lawsuit, not my church friends, not the ladies at the beauty salon, not even the mailman who always lingered too long by my gate. I figured the fewer people who knew, the less noise there'd be. I'd had enough noise already, the kind that comes from broken trust. The filing went through on a Wednesday morning, quiet as a prayer. Clarence called me from his office. It's official, Loretta. We've submitted everything to the Superior Court. Fraud, elder abuse, and unauthorised signature forgery. Darius will be notified within 48 hours. I didn't say anything at first. I just watched the sunlight crawl across my living room wall. Once you send a thing like that, I said, finally, you can't unsend it. Clarence's voice softened. He made his choice. Now you're making yours. The next 2 days were a waiting game. Denise kept checking in, bringing over sweet potato pie and updates from her friend who worked at the county clerk's office. They'll serve him papers by email and certified mail, she said, sipping her coffee. He's over there living like a damn influencer. He probably won't even read it till someone tags him in the comments. I almost laughed, but my throat felt too tight. That night I sat by the window looking out at the quiet street. South Central wasn't what it used to be. Fewer block parties, more sirens, fewer kids playing outside. Still, it was home. My home. And I was done letting anyone, even my own flesh and blood, take it from me. By the weekend, things began to move fast. Clarence called again. Loretta, the international freeze request has been approved, he said. Any accounts under his name or joint authorization will be temporarily locked pending investigation. I blinked. Even the one he's using overseas. Especially that one, Clarence said. Interpol handles financial cooperation with the US Treasury now. It'll hit him like a cold shower. I could almost picture it Darius at some hotel lobby in Rome, handing over his shiny credit card, expecting applause, and instead getting a polite little beep that said, declined. It wasn't revenge, I felt. It was something smaller, quieter, like the sound of balance returning. On Sunday morning, I went to church for the first time in months. The choir sang, "His eye is on the sparrow," and I found myself crying halfway through. Not because I was sad, but because for the first time in a long time, I felt seen. After service, Pastor Jenkins stopped me by the steps. "Haven't seen you in a while." "Sister Loretta," he said. "You doing all right?" I smiled. "Just handling some things, Pastor. Cleaning my house, you could say." He chuckled. "Ain't nothing wrong with a little spring cleaning." I nodded. If only he knew. On Monday morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls and a voicemail from an unknown number. The message started with the sound of wind, then a shaky voice. "Mama. Mama, it's me." I froze. Darius sounded scared. Not angry, not arrogant, scared. "They froze my accounts. My cards don't work. Keisha's gone. Valerie too. I'm stranded, Mama. What did you do?" I replayed that part over and over. What did you do? For a moment, I almost called him back. My hand hovered over the phone. But then I remembered the bank slips, the forged signature, the way he'd written, "I earned this." I put the phone down and whispered to no one, "I just stopped you from taking what was mine." Later that day, Clarence came by with documents to sign. "Loretta, he's trying to contact the embassy. He's claiming this is a misunderstanding. Don't respond to him directly, let the legal channels handle it." I wasn't planning to, I said. Clarence gave me that look, half lawyer, half friend. "You're doing the right thing, but I know it doesn't feel good." "No," I said, "it doesn't." But neither did watching my son turn into a stranger. Denise joined us later with her tablet. "You got to see this," she said. She showed me a screenshot from Darius's Instagram. The page was wiped clean. No pictures, no videos, no followers. just a blank profile and a short line in the bio. Taking time off to reflect. I almost laughed. Reflect, huh? Maybe he'll see something in that mirror he didn't before. As the days went on, I started sleeping better. Not because I'd forgiven him, I hadn't not yet, but because I knew he couldn't hurt me anymore. The house felt different now. Lighter. The air didn't carry that same heaviness. I even caught myself humming while cooking breakfast. One afternoon, while watering the garden, I found an old Polaroid stuck between two flower pots. Darius at 12, covered in mud, holding a football bigger than his head. I laughed out loud. Then I sat down on the porch steps and let the tears come. I still loved that boy. I probably always would. But love doesn't mean letting someone destroy you. A week later, Clarence called with news. He's agreed to meet Loretta. The embassy in Rome arranged for him to sign a voluntary admission of fraud in exchange for no criminal charges in the US. I raised an eyebrow. He's actually going to sign it. They'll make him. It's that or a federal case. He's out of options. Denise clapped her hands together. Looks like Justice just booked a flight to Italy. Clarence smiled. You should be there when he signs Loretta. Closure isn't something you get from paper. You get it from looking the truth in the face. I didn't answer right away. But that night, I pulled out my passport. It was old dusty, but still valid. I wiped the cover clean and stared at the golden letters. United States of America. The next morning, I called Clarence. I'll go, I said. If this ends in Rome, I want to see it with my own eyes. He exhaled like he'd been holding that breath for years. Then I'll make the arrangements. After I hung up, I looked around my little house, the photos, the flowers, the sunlight falling through the curtains. I touched the arm of my recliner, the same chair I'd sat in when I realised everything was gone. Only now it didn't feel like loss. It felt like closure in progress. Sometimes justice doesn't look like a gavel or a jail cell. Sometimes it's just a woman sitting in her kitchen knowing she finally took her life back. I hadn't been on a plane in nearly 20 years. Last time was for my sister's funeral in Detroit, and I'd sworn afterward that if the Lord wanted me somewhere else, he'd better give me wings. But life has a sense of humour, or maybe justice does, because now here I was at LAX, with a boarding pass in my hand, heading halfway across the world to confront the boy who used to sit on my lap and ask if angels got tired. The line moved slow, filled with chatter and rolling suitcases. A young woman behind me was talking into her phone. Yeah, babe, Rome's gonna be insane. I already booked the Airbnb. She laughed carefree, not knowing she was standing right behind a woman flying there for something far from a vacation. I didn't pack much, just one small suitcase, a photo album, a yellow envelope, and my Bible. Denise had tried to convince me to bring more. What if you stay longer, she'd said. But I knew I wouldn't. I wasn't there to sightsee. I was there to see him. The flight was long, 12 hours of clouds, whispers and memories. I couldn't sleep. The hum of the engines sounded like a low moan, steady and endless. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Darius as a child again, sitting at the kitchen table, swinging his legs while doing homework. Mama, when I grow up, I'm going to buy you a house with a big porch, he used to say. I'd smile and tell him, baby, I already got a house. What I need is for you to build your own porch. Somewhere over the Atlantic, I pressed my forehead against the window. The sky was a velvet black stars, scattered like sugar. My reflection looked older than I remembered. Tired but sharper somehow, like the years had carved out what I didn't need anymore. When we landed in Rome, the air smelled different, like stone dust and espresso. The city moved at its own rhythm, scooters darting through traffic church bells, ringing somewhere far off. I took a taxi straight to the US Embassy. The driver, a cheerful Italian man named Paolo, tried to make conversation. Vacation, signora, I smiled faintly, something like that. He pointed out the window. Colosseo beautiful, yes. I looked where he pointed, that same place I'd seen on Darius's Instagram, him standing there like he owned the world. It looked smaller in real life. Maybe everything does when you finally see it for what it is. The embassy building was stark white and guarded the American flag hanging stiff in the morning breeze. Inside the air was cool and quiet, too quiet. A young officer led me to a waiting room. Mrs. Jackson, Mr. Darius Jackson will be escorted here shortly. You'll have an opportunity to witness his statement. Witness. That word sat heavy in my chest. I waited, hands folded in my lap, listening to the ticking clock on the wall. When the door opened, I didn't recognise him at first. He looked smaller, thinner. His once proud shoulders slumped under the weight of something heavier than luggage. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair unkempt, and his eyes, those same eyes that used to light up when he saw me, looked dim now. "Mama," he said, barely above a whisper. I didn't answer. He sat across from me. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I studied him quietly. "You didn't mean to steal from me." He winced. I thought I could pay it back." "You don't understand." "No, Darius," I cut in softly. "I understand better than you think. You wanted to build a life fast. You thought I was old and wouldn't notice. You thought love made me blind." He dropped his head into his hands. Keisha left. Valerie too. They said I was a fool. They said I was nothing without the money. I wanted to say something kind, something motherly, but the words wouldn't come. The embassy officer cleared his throat. "Mr. Jackson, please sign the acknowledgement of financial misconduct." Darius hesitated, then looked at me. "You really did this?" I nodded once. "I did what I had to. You took my savings, my trust, and my name. I took back my peace." He stared at the document, then signed. The scratch of the pen sounded louder than the city outside. When it was done, the officer left us alone for a few minutes. I reached into my bag and pulled out the yellow envelope. "This is for you," I said, sliding it across the table. He frowned, opening it slowly. Inside were old photographs, him as a baby in a blue blanket, his first report card, a crayon drawing of our house, with stick figures labelled "Me and Mama." Beneath them, a handwritten letter sealed in my cursive. He looked up, eyes wet. "What's this?" "My goodbye," I said. "Mama, please." I stood, my knees stiff but my resolve steady. "You were my whole world, Darius, but I was never yours." His lips trembled. "I'm sorry." "I believe you," I said. But sorry doesn't fix everything. Sometimes it just has to sit there between two people, like a wall that used to be a bridge. He cried then quietly, the way grown men do when they've run out of words. I wanted to hold him, but I didn't. Instead, I touched his shoulder one last time and walked away. Outside the embassy, the sun was warm on my skin. Rome looked beautiful that morning. Golden domes, laughing tourists, pigeons fluttering in the square. For a brief moment, I let myself breathe. Paolo, the same driver, was waiting. "Good meeting, Signora?" he asked. I smiled faintly. "Good enough." He drove me to a small cafe near the Tiber River. I sat outside with a cappuccino, the foam trembling in the breeze. Around me, life carried on, couples arguing softly, a violinist playing somewhere down the street. I watched it all like it was a movie I'd finally reached the ending of. I took out my notebook and began to write. Not about him, but about me. About the woman who refused to be invisible, who crossed an ocean not for revenge, but for closure. When I finished, I looked up at the river and whispered, "It's done." And for the first time in a long while, it truly was. Coming home always feels different after you've left a piece of yourself somewhere else. I stepped off the plane at LAX with that familiar Los Angeles heat pressing down on my shoulders, thick, dry, and oddly comforting. I had no souvenirs, no postcards, no photographs from Rome. Only an emptiness that wasn't heavy anymore, just settled. The taxi driver asked, "First time in Italy, ma'am?" "Last time too," I said. He laughed politely, not understanding, and helped me with my bag. As we drove down the freeway, the billboards, palm trees, and half-broken overpasses rolled by like old neighbours, waving from a distance. My city loud cracked. Imperfect was waiting for me, and for the first time I felt ready to face it again. When I walked through my front door, the house smelled like it always did. Lemon cleaner and old wood. The air was still. Sunlight streamed across the same spot on the floor where I'd stood weeks ago holding that bank statement in disbelief. The same spot where everything started. I dropped my suitcase and just stood there for a while. No tears, no anger, just a strange quiet peace. Like the house itself was saying, "You did it. You came back." The phone rang. Denise, of course. "You home yet?" she asked. "Just walked in." "You get him?" "I saw him," I said. "He signed what needed signing." There was a pause. "And you okay?" I looked around at the sunlight on my walls, the dust dancing in it. "I think so, Denise. I think I finally am." The next morning, I went for a checkup at St Agnes Medical. I'd been ignoring some pain in my side for months, figured it was age or stress. But the doctor, a kind young woman with a gentle smile, didn't look as calm when she came back with my results. "Mrs. Jackson," she said softly, "we found something. There's a mass in your pancreas. It's advanced." The word advanced echoed like a bell. She kept talking about chemotherapy, about timelines, about options. But all I could hear was the clock ticking on the wall, steady like a countdown. When she finally stopped, I asked how long. She hesitated. 6 months, maybe less. I nodded, took a deep breath and said, "Well, I've had a good run." She looked at me like she expected me to cry. I didn't. I'd already spent all my tears somewhere over the Atlantic. That night, I made a pot of tea and sat out on the porch. The air was cool, the neighbourhood quiet. A few kids were playing basketball down the street, their laughter floating in the dusk. Denise came by without knocking, carrying 2 slices of peach cobbler. "You look too calm," she said, sitting beside me. "I saw my doctor today," I said. Her face changed. "What did she say?" 6 months. She covered her mouth. "Oh, Lord." "It's all right," I said. "Really. I've had a long life. Not perfect, but long. I'm tired, Denise. I want to rest knowing my affairs are in order." She didn't argue, just reached out and held my hand. We sat there, 2 old women watching the sun dip below the rooftops, not saying much. Sometimes silence says more than words ever could. The following weeks passed slow and soft. Clarence helped me finalise the estate, the house, the accounts, even the lawsuit settlements. "You're officially done with the courts, Loretta," he said, handing me a thick folder. "Good," I said. "Now I can focus on what matters." I spent my mornings writing letters, not emails, letters. One for Denise, one for Clarence, a few for the ladies at church, and one, of course, for Darius. That one took me the longest. I wrote, crossed out, started over, again and again. What do you say to the person who broke your heart and came from it too? In the end, I kept it simple. Darius. I don't know what kind of man you'll become after this, but I hope it's one who understands the value of forgiveness, not just asking for it, but earning it. I love you still. Mama. I folded it, sealed it, and tucked it into the deed folder, the same one that would go to him when I was gone. By the end of August, the pain had worsened. The doctor offered stronger medicine, but I didn't want to sleep through my last days. I wanted to feel them, even the hard parts. I spent more time on my porch watching the streetlights flicker on. Some evenings, neighbours would wave, not knowing anything had changed. Other nights, Denise would read aloud from the newspaper just to fill the silence. "You ever think about seeing him again?" she asked one night. I shook my head. "If he wants to come, he will. If not, well, some goodbyes are meant to stay quiet." She nodded slowly. "You really do forgive him, huh?" I smiled. "I do, but forgiveness ain't a gift you give someone else. It's the key you use to open your own door." The last week of September, I woke up one morning and knew deep in my bones that my time was close. The world looked softer somehow. The sun through the curtains, the creak of the floorboards, even the kettle whistle sounded far away. I dressed in my favourite blue housecoat, made myself tea, and sat in my rocking chair. On the table beside me, I placed the envelope labelled, "For Darius." Inside the house, deed my letter and the photo of him as a little boy holding that football. As I rocked, the chair creaked in rhythm with my heartbeat. I thought of my husband long gone, of my friends, my childhood, my garden. I thought of Darius, not the man who took from me, but the boy who used to fall asleep on my shoulder after Sunday service. When the light hit the window just right, I closed my eyes and smiled. "I'm ready," I whispered. They found me that way, peaceful tea still warmed the letter on the table. At the funeral, the pastor said Sister Loretta was a woman who loved hard and lived honest. Denise made sure the flowers were yellow tulips just like I liked. Clarence stood in the back, silent as ever, his hat in his hands. And Darius, he came too. Folks said he sat on the porch afterward for hours just staring at the empty rocking chair. Every morning since he's been seen leaving a donut and a note on the steps. Never knocks, never stays, just leaves them and walks away. Some wounds take a lifetime to heal. Others bloom after the person's gone. Either way, the house still stands. The garden still grows. And somewhere I like to think my son is learning what love truly costs and what it's worth. The first time I walked back into Mama's house, It didn't smell like lemon cleaner anymore. It smelled like old wood dust and the faint trace of her perfume gardenia, I think. She used to dab a little behind her ears every Sunday morning before church, saying, "You never know who's watching, boy. Always look your best." That was a long time ago. Now the house on Avalon Street was mine. At least that's what the deed said, her careful signature, still curling at the bottom like she'd taken her time writing it. But standing there in the living room suitcase, still by the door, I didn't feel like an owner. I felt like a trespasser. It had been 6 months since the funeral. I didn't show my face much after. Denise kept calling, leaving voicemails. "You need to come home, baby. She left it all to you for a reason." I wasn't sure I believed that. I wasn't sure I deserved it. But life has a way of cornering you until there's nowhere else to go. My business had folded, my apartment lease was up, and the money was gone. Again. So one night I packed what little I had and drove down Avalon Street, under that same orange light that used to guide me home as a kid. The house looked smaller than I remembered. The fence leaned, the mailbox was crooked, and the tulips Mama loved were gone. Weeds had swallowed them whole. Inside, everything was still. Her rocking chair sat by the window, a thin film of dust over the armrest. I brushed it off with my sleeve, half expecting her to scold me for making a mess of my clean house. On the table was an old envelope yellowed and sealed with her handwriting. For Darius. I stared at it for a long time before I opened it. Inside was a folded letter and a photograph of me, maybe age 7, grinning with 2 missing teeth and holding a football bigger than my head. Her words were simple, too simple for what I'd done. "I hope you become a man who understands the value of forgiveness, not just asking for it, but earning it." I must have read that line 20 times. By the last one, the paper was wet. The days that followed were quiet. I cleaned the house, fixed the fence, even replanted tulips in the front yard. I didn't have much work, just odd jobs for neighbours who remembered my mother. They'd smile sadly when they saw me, like they were looking at a ghost. "Loretta would be proud you're keeping it up," Mrs. Henderson said one afternoon while handing me lemonade. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. Pride wasn't something I thought I deserved. One evening I found myself sitting on the porch with a donut in my hand. It had become a habit, leaving one there every morning since the funeral. I told myself it was for her spirit, but really it was for me. Some days I'd talk out loud like she was sitting beside me. "Hey, Mama," I'd say. "The fence finally holds. Denise brought cobbler again. You'd like it." Then I'd wait like she might actually answer. But the wind only moved through the tulips soft and slow, and I'd imagine her voice in it, gentle, forgiving. A few weeks later, Denise stopped by. She stood on the porch arms, crossed the same no-nonsense look she used to give me when I was a teenager, sneaking out at night. "You look better," she said, peeking into the living room. "House smells like bleach again." She'd like that. "Trying my best," I said. She nodded, her eyes softening. "You been to church?" I shook my head. "You should come this Sunday. Pastor been asking about you." I sighed, not sure I'm ready for all those looks. "Those looks are love, baby," she said. "Just comes with a little judgment sprinkled in." I laughed, first real laugh in months. Sounds like church all right. That Sunday I went. Sat in the back, quiet, listening. The choir sang one of Mama's favourites, "His Eye is on the Sparrow," and when the chorus hit, I swear I could hear her voice among theirs, faint, steady, clear. After the service, Pastor Green came over, that same slow smile on his face. "Didn't expect to see you, son." "Guess it was time," I said. He nodded. "Loretta was a good woman. You carry her eyes, you know that same light when you're not trying to hide it." I didn't have an answer for that. Just smiled weakly and shook his hand. Back home, I found myself digging through old boxes in the attic. Photos, church bulletins, birthday cards, pieces of a woman who'd lived simple but full. At the bottom of one box, I found a small cassette tape labelled Kitchen April 94. I dusted off the old player and pressed play. There she was, her voice laughing. "Darius, put that cookie down. You go and spoil your dinner." Then my younger self, high-pitched and defiant. "But Mama, it's just one." The tape ended with her singing softly while washing dishes. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The sound of her voice, warm, alive, hit me like a wave. I closed my eyes, let the tears come, and whispered, "I'm sorry, Mama, for everything." And for the first time, it felt like she heard me. Months passed. the house began to feel alive again. I painted the walls, replaced the curtains, and hung her photo above the mantel. I even started hosting Sunday dinners, Denise, a few neighbours, sometimes even kids from the block who needed a place to eat. It wasn't about atonement anymore. It was about continuation, about making the house what it had always been, a place of warmth. One night, as I stood in the doorway, looking out at the porch where her rocking chair still sat, the breeze moved just enough to make it creak. I smiled. "Good night, Mama." Now every morning I still leave a donut on the step, not out of guilt anymore, but gratitude. The house on Avalon Street doesn't feel haunted. It feels inhabited. Every creak, every flicker of sunlight through those old blinds, every tulip that blooms, they remind me that forgiveness is not about forgetting. It's about rebuilding one nail, one prayer, one day at a time. And maybe that's what she wanted all along.